Hello, and welcome to Conquering Finale. My name is Jason Lafredo, and today we are once again outsmarting smart shapes. In fact, we're going to look at custom lines today, which happens to be one of my favorite things about smart shapes. And the custom line tool in your smart shape palette is one all the way at the end that looks sort of like a little snowflake right here. Now, the lines that exist in the custom lines, there's many lines that you can use as a custom line. So we have to be able to access, we have to be able to choose which one we want. And it's a little bit hidden, but I'll just show you where it is. If you go to the Smart Shape menu and choose Smart Shape Options, down here where it says Smart Lines, we have a pull-down menu that gives you four options: glissando, tab slide, custom line, and guitar bend. Now, what this does is that with one of these things checked, when you press the select key over here, what you'll do is you'll pull up a smart line selection dialog box in which you can choose which smart line will get applied to each of these tools. Now, in the case of the glissando, it's the fourth line. That's why the 4 is set up here. That's set up for the glissando. The tab slide is the second one. The guitar bend is the third one. And the custom line currently is set to the fifth one, but it can be any number of the other custom lines that exist in the selection dialog box. So in order to apply a custom line to the custom line tool, we have to choose custom line and then press select. And from here, we'll get the Smart Line selection dialog box. And you'll see that the glissando here is the fourth one in. That's why it was set to number 4. This is the tab slide number 2 and the guitar bend number 3. And but you can see that there's a whole long list of other smart lines that are available to us. This is just right out of the box, and we can create our own and edit the ones that are here, etc. So there's a lot that can be done with this. But the important thing to know is that we have to select one of these things in order to use it with the custom line tool. So let's say we're going to choose the RIT, press select, and you'll see that it put number 6 in this box, meaning that it's the 6th line that's attached to this custom line tool now. And then we can just double click and drag to add the RIT. All right. Now, one thing about these custom lines is that they also have meta tools attached to them. So if we go back here, custom line select, you'll see that in the upper right-hand corner of some of these, they have a letter or a number sometimes, and that will be the meta tool that's attached to this particular line. So you see R is for RIT, P is for the pedal line, and by the way, this pedal quote-unquote line is just 2 characters at the beginning and end with an invisible line in the middle. The Finale considers it a line because it's a continuous thing. But anyway, I digress. The meta tools will be listed in the upper right corner, and some of them have meta tools, as you can see. A is accelerando, J is crescendo, I is diminuendo. And some of these, actually these 5 in particular, are kind of worth memorizing because when you have them memorized, you don't need to go back into this dialog box to use it. In fact, let's just set up the pedal as the default custom line. So now with no meta tools or no keys depressed for a meta tool, it will give me the pedal line if I'm in the custom tool. However, it doesn't matter if I'm in the custom tool or not. If I press one of those other letters, let's say diminuendo is I, right? So if I hold down I and double click and drag, I'll get the diminuendo again. If I hold down R, I can get that retard again, just like that. So you can access some of these custom lines without having to go through that process of, going to the custom line tool, going to Smart Shape Options, choosing custom lines, and then selecting it, right? A lot of these have meta tools already, and if you have them memorized, you can make some short work of it. Now, we can also reprogram these meta tools if we want. In fact, currently you'll see that R is attached to the RIT here, but if we wanted R to be attached to the RAL, this is how we do it. First of all, I have to cancel out of here, cancel out of here. Now, in order to do this, we do have to make sure that the custom line tool is selected. Otherwise, we're going to start assigning meta tools to whatever Smart Shape tool we have selected. So make sure that's selected and press Shift R. And what that will do is it will pull up the Smart Line selection dialog box again. And basically what you're doing is you're reattaching the R key to the next Smart Line that you choose in this dialog box. So currently the RIT is chosen because that's what it was set to. But if I choose the RAL and press select. You have just programmed a meta tool for the currently selected Smart Shape tool. Would you like Finale to save the meta tool? Yes, I would. That would be great. Okay, so now when I hold down R, I'll get the RAL instead of the RIT. All right, so that is shift whatever letter or number you want to program will get you there. And you have to make sure that you're in the custom line tool. So let's do that one more time. Shift R, and we'll set it back to the RIT for now. Select. Yes, I'd like to program it. And now hold down R, double click, and drag to get the RIT line. All right, just as easy as that. I do want to point out some of the other custom lines that are available to you out of the box, because some of these are useful. And if you know that they're here, you'll know where to find them, and you'll be able to make some good use out of them. Specifically, below the decrescendo line here, we do have a series of piano pedal lines, right, with various beginning points and end points. I don't know if you can see that too well, but a little hook there with a little arrow hook at the end, the double arrow hook here, etc. Now, these lines you can create in your piano part, you know, one at a time to get the type of piano pedal shape that you want. So let me just illustrate this a little bit. This does get a little tedious with this one particular, but let me just show you a couple of these. So if we add, let's just put this one in first. Select. All right. Actually, I should have done this the other way. So let's do another one. And this time we'll choose, how about this one? Now this does get a little tricky because you do have to make sure that they're lined up exactly right. And let me just zoom in so you can see this, because they do, you know, they're not going to automatically line up, although you can automatically line up, and I'm just going to show you that in a second. So if you just kind of put them in quickly, what you can actually do is select them both, right click, and choose align horizontally, and that will at least get them in line horizontally. However, they won't connect yet, right? So to connect them, you do have to actually adjust them to exactly the right spot. So with this type of tedious work, I do suggest that if you're going to use these piano pedal lines, you do this sort of at the end of your process, because when you start moving notes around and respacing everything, these things are going to get, you know, kind of screwed up a little bit. So if you're going to use these in particular, I would suggest that you do those last. Let me see what else is in the custom line selection dialog box. So we've got those pedal markings. We've got the trills with the flats, sharps, and naturals in it. I think I might have shown you that in one of the previous videos. And there's some other things having to do with harmonics and pick harmonics and stuff like that. Palm mutes for guitars. Here's a let ring kind of line, dashed line with a hook at the end. All kinds of stuff. Up bow, down bow. I think these are guitar fingerings, I believe. So you got a bunch of different options here. And the great thing about this is that we can add to these and we can edit them. In fact, at the bottom of the box, we have a similar setup as a lot of other windows in Finale, where we can, you know, choose one and edit. We can duplicate it. We can delete it, move it down and move it up. We'll just change the order of it. And of course, we can create our own. If we press that, we'll just create an empty one, and we'll get the Smart Line Designer, which I'll go through in a second. All right, so that is pretty much, you know, what's out of the box with the Smart Line. There's a lot to use right out of the box. All right, so let's start actually looking at how we can create some Smart Lines. So let me just create one. And when we do that, we get the Smart Line Designer dialog box. And there's a lot to this, but it is fairly it is a fairly logical dialog box. So hopefully I can get through this pretty quickly. But we have a few sections of it. We have the line style. We have endpoints for the start and end. We have text, and then we have adjustments that can be made to the line relative to the text. So let's start with line style. We basically have three different choices. We have solid, which will give us a solid line. You can see the result here. We have dashed, which will give us a dashed line. And we have character. Now with character chosen, we have the option of setting a font. In this case, Maestro is set. And we have the option of setting a character. And in this case, the the character that's used for the glissando line or the trill extension is selected, right? And with any of these options, solid, dashed, or character, we have the option of making sure that it's horizontal by default. Most of the time, you're going to want to have that checked because you're probably going to want a horizontal line. With solid or dashed, we have some options here for thickness, dash length, and space. The thickness will apply to either the solid or the dashed line. So if you want a little bit thicker, you can, make this line just a little bit thicker. Instead of 0.006, we can make it 0.01 perhaps. And that will increase the thickness just a little bit. And that will apply to the dashed line as well if you change it over. And then we have dashed length and the space between the dash. You can play with this if you want, but that's literally what it says. You can, if you want a longer dash itself with less space, make this number bigger. Make this 0.1 and make this 0.05. Right, that will give you sort of an uneven kind of dash where the line itself is a little bit longer than the space. So that's available if you want to do that. And then when we choose character, I mentioned that we have the option of selecting the character from whatever font. We can choose any font, really. It could actually be a text font, which might be strange. And you can select a letter, so you get a line of letters if you want to do something silly like that, but that's available to you as well. Let's go back to Maestro. Let's go back to the, where is it? There it is. Just to reset that. And then finally, this VEMS. Now this is, let me just check my notes here. This is the vertical offset in EMS distance, which is point size independent units. There you go. And this won't appear to do anything unless there's something else here, unless there's like text or something. But if I were to change this to positive 88, you'll see that line jump a little bit upwards. This will become more important when we start adding texts and we're dealing with positioning of text and everything, all right? So for now, let's just choose solid line. So that is the line style section. Next, let's look at the endpoints, and there's two endpoints. There's a start endpoint and an end endpoint, all right? So what this is going to be whatever character or hook that you put on the end of the line. And there's three options for each. There's a preset arrowhead. If you choose that, you can press select, and you can see that you have 5 different options for arrowheads. So if we choose that, we will see that our arrowhead is pointing left. I hope you can see that. It's a little small, even though the character itself looks to be pointing right. It obviously flips it around. We have custom arrowhead, and if we select here, we have some custom arrowheads, and these right here happen to be the arrowheads that are being used for those pedal lines currently. But you can actually add to this. You can create your own arrowhead, basically using the shape designer. Which gets a little complicated, but we can do that. Or we can have a simple hook. And the hook, what we have here is a value that we can add to the hook. So a positive number here, let's say we put 0.2, will create a hook that goes upwards. I hope you can see that right there. A negative value, negative 0.2, will create a hook that goes downwards, right? And of course, this is the start point, so that's why it's putting it on the left. Now these hooks are absolute. So let me just show you. I'm going to put let's say 0.1 here, and I'm going to do a hook on the other side of also 0.1, positive 0.1, and you can see that the hooks are upwards, right? These will not flip depending on where you put it on the staff, which is different from these other hook smart lines, right? Because we know that this one right here, you'll have a hook going downwards if you put it above, but the hooks will go upwards, right? That's the difference between these particular lines and doing it as a custom line with those hooks. And now you'll see that those hooks will be facing upwards no matter what, right? The other thing that's different about the hooks as a custom line is that if you were to unhorizontal this, if you make this not horizontal, these hooks will remain perpendicular to the line. As you can see, they're still at right angles despite the fact that I've completely made that line vertical. Versus the other hook line tool, when we use that one, if we were to make this not horizontal, these hooks now will remain perpendicular to the staff, right? Let me just zoom in a little bit here so you can see that. So this is the hooked line from the main part of the Smart Shape palette, and you can see that the hooks remain perpendicular to the staff. These are the hooks when you use it on a custom line. You can see that they remain perpendicular to the line. So there is a bit of a difference with those hooks. Now, if you create a hook like this, by the way, a hooked line like this, and just the way I showed you, you can actually use these for violin double stops. I know this is a piano part, but I'm just going to show you that you can actually kind of use it like that. All right. And I probably could have made those hooks a little bit shorter, but that's the idea. You can use it for something like that. All right, let's just go back to our Smart Shape option here. Go back to that line that we were working on and edit to bring up the Smart Line Designer again. So for now, I'm going to go choose none for the start hook, and I'm going to make this a negative hook. Let's call it negative 0.05. Let's see what that gives us. Yep, something like that. And let's start looking at the text. All right, so the text is going to allow us to put text at the beginning, the right end of it, the center, and there's a center abbreviation, and the left continuation. So what these are is the left start. When you press edit, you'll get an edit text box here where you can type anything you want. That will be at the beginning of the line. If you add a left continuation, you get the same text box. You can type something different. This will be what appears on the left-hand side of a new system if the line were to continue across a system break. The right end, again, same edit text box, will be text that appears at the end of the smart line. Center full will put text centered on the entire line, so it doesn't matter how long you make the line, it will center itself. And center abbreviation will be the text that it will use if the line is too short to fit the entire full text, right? So this is what you would see in the glissando line, for example. You have a center full text that says glissando, and you have a center abbreviation text that just says gliss, G-L-I-S-S, right? That's how they would do that with two different texts in those positions, right? So I'm just going to create something fun here for you. So let's do left start. We're going to create a fun text, because this can be anything you want. Play like you don't want to, and actually we can do a carriage return here to put it on the second line as well, to miss the 9:37 bus. All right, ooh, bus, there we go. Can't type. Play like you don't want to miss the 9:37 bus. That's the line we're going to create. All right, and you can see that that's the text that that gets added to the thing. Now there is a couple things to know about this. You'll see that the text gets sort of left justified to the left side of the line, and as it currently sits, that line is going all the way back towards the beginning, which is not what we want. So in the line adjustment section up here in the upper right, we have a few different options here. And what we probably want to do is check the one that says after text, start horizontal after text. And what that will do is it will push the beginning of the line to the end of the end of the text here. And we can actually add a little space if we wanted to put even more space between it, right? The vertical here, by the way, if we were to put a negative number in here, let me just show you this. If we do negative 0.2, oops. Negative 0.2 will actually put it in line with this one, right? And so now if we change this start horizontal back to 0, it's getting a little bit closer, but we can actually go a negative number here. Let's say negative 0.5. Maybe not that much, negative 0.2. And you can see, I hope you can see this. I know this is really small. And you can see that the line now starts sort of in the bottom line of this text, just after the word bus there, right? So this is how you would make these adjustments with the line adjustment and the left start text, right? So let's do the left continuation now, because let's say this is going to be a long line that goes across systems, so we're going to add a left continuation. And the cool thing about this edit text box is that it's completely editable for size and style and all that stuff. In fact, anything up here in the text menu, anything that's available here, you can do to this text. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something fun. I'm going to do parentheses, and then I'm going to change the font to, where is it? Webdings. I've got a Webdings font here. I'm going to type V, because I know that that's my bus character. And then I'm going to change the font back to Times New Roman. If I can find it, regular. And then type the other parentheses. And we'll get this text, which is a parentheses of a bus. And you can see that you get the bus in parentheses. Now, the problem here is that the line is very much below that. So what we can do is change the left continuation position, which will allow us to put this in line. We could also do this with the regular text too, but we'll just do it here. And we can just grab that and kind of put it in line with our line, just like that. And then we can use the continuation after text, right? And we'll add, actually it looks pretty good just like that, right? So what we've got is this crazy little line with this text and this little bus icon and a hook at the end. And that's what we're going to get, right? And actually what we can do, maybe we'll do one more. At the end, we'll say, go home. There we go. All right, and we can see that it's a little bit high. So again, with the right end positioning, we can now select that text and just go down a little bit to put it on top. Let's say we're going to do it just like that. All right. And now we'll click OK. And now we've got this crazy custom line that I just created, and it added all this here, but let me just take that out because I was editing the one that we had already had in the score. All right, so now I've got that line. I've got it set up on the custom line tool, and I'm going to add it to the entire violin part. There you go. And currently, because it sits on one system in the score right now, all you're seeing is the beginning and the end text. You're not seeing the continuation text. Let me just zoom in here, but you can see that we've got the play like you don't want to miss the 937 bus. At the end, we have go home, right? But if I were to go into the violin part itself, you'll see the continuation because it crosses the system now. All right, so now we've got the bus icon at the system break. Of course, I would have to fix some of this spacing up here, but you get the idea. All right, so that's, you know, like I said, there's a lot of fun things that you can do with the custom lines tool. Let me just go back to the score. Go back a little bit. All right, so now that I've given you a sort of fairly silly use for the custom lines, let me give you just a couple practical uses for it, because there's a couple things missing in here that I wish came out of the box. Let me go back to Smart Shape Options, and this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Tab Slide for a second. Now remember, if I choose Tab Slide and I select, when I'm done with the selection dialog box, it's going to apply it to the Tab Slide tool, not the Custom Lines tool, right? So I'm going to press Select. Now this is the Tab Slide. It's the X line right here with the X meta tool. I'm going to duplicate this, which is going to create a new one based on that line, and I'm going to edit it. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a center text called I can't type today, portamento, right? And again, these text boxes are completely stylizable. That's not a word, but there you go. And we're going to choose italics for this. And you can see that we now have portamento. And like I said, that's for the full text, but for the abbreviation, let's call it port, P-O-R-T, period. And again, let's italicize it. Okay. And that will be our center abbreviation. Now you notice that the port is very close to the line there, so we can fix that just by selecting the position of the center full text, which is what the portamento is, and we can just actually just drag it upwards just a little bit off the line. Was at 0.04, and then we can do the same setting for the center abbreviation, 0.04. Get it just up off that line a little bit, all right? So now what I've done is I've created a tab slide that uses the word portamento in the middle, just sort of like a glissando line would use glissando and gliss in the middle of it, right? So now when I use the tab slide tool, which is this one, and we double click, we'll get the portamento version of the tab slide. You can see how that works just like that. And if I had a longer one, you see portamento, the whole word, right? And a very short one would end up with no text at all. It works exactly like the glissando text with the glissando tool. All right, so that's how you do that. And then finally, one more practical thing I want to show you, because Finale doesn't give you a double-sided hooked line, if that makes sense. So let's create one. If we go to custom line, and I'm thinking of like the palm mute, for example. If this palm mute was sort of between, between a guitar notation staff and a guitar tab staff, you might want to have the hook go up and down, right? Well, let me just duplicate and edit. The problem with the hooks in the endpoint situation is that they can only go up or down. They can't go both up and down, right? And interestingly, what some of these custom lines do, instead of using a hook, as you can see, they actually use a right end character. So if I edit the right end, it's really hard to see, but there is a character there. And what it is Helvetica 6 plane. It's an upright line character. And what I can do is actually change the size of that a little bit. So let's go to size 10. Okay, so now you can see that hook is just slightly larger there at the end, and then we can change the positioning of that right end, and this is really hard to see. Yeah, it takes a little finessing, but once you get it there, essentially what you have now, hopefully, if I did that right. Oops, I gotta be in the custom line tool. You'll see basically a double-sided hook, or a hook that goes up and down at the end of that dashed line. Right? I probably could have put it a little bit closer to the dashed line so it connects a little bit, but it does take a little finessing with it. So that's just another practical thing that you can do with the custom lines. And again, within that custom line dialog box, you can see how there's a ton of different options for design. Between dashed style characters. You can even create like lines made out of characters, which I showed you. If you have special characters in a special font, you can do that too. So, there's a lot of interesting things you can do. So I hope you can take advantage of that. All right, and it looks like I've been talking for a while, so I think I'll end it here. But thanks for watching, and we'll come back soon and do some more videos on outsmarting smart shapes.